Oh man. Alright. Third time is the charm. Hello internets, it is once again Olin from What I'm Listening To, still in my little CD corner. Welcome back to the third and final part of the unboxing trifecta that we're doing. We have the part 3 box full of packages to unbox and show off and talk about here. If you haven't done so already, I highly recommend watching the first 2 parts so you can see what else we've talked about. Or if you don't care and just want to start with the third part, don't let me stop you. So no introductions needed. Let's dive right in to the contents inside here. What do I want to start with? Let's start with this one because it's huge. It's a huge box. And I don't even think the CD inside this box is all that huge per se, but it's nice packaging. It's a lot getting smaller. Okay, there it is. All of this for this guy. Okay, so the first CD I have for you today, this is Terry Riley's Persian Sugary Dervishes. Terry Riley is a phenomenal ambient minimalism composer who has put out a lot of works that are very, very, very good. His album, A Curved Rainbow, is probably his most popular, but that's just one of the many things he's done over the years. This is one that actually came out, I want to say, in the same time frame that A Curved Rainbow came out in, and it, to me, is just as good. A lot of Terry's music is sadly becoming very difficult to find as they've gone out of print. In fact, this one is actually long out of print and is going for pretty high amounts of money. But I was able to snag a copy of this one for pretty inexpensive, and I'm very happy because this one is very, very good. So any of you who have not heard of Terry Riley should definitely look into his works. A Curved Rainbow is a good place to start, but this one also is just as good, and I highly recommend it. Okay, next up, which one do I want to do? There's a lot to choose from in here. I guess we'll do this one here. This one should be easy to open. Conveniently placed tab. Oh, no, no. Oh yeah, there we go. Cool. And there's a thing. What is this? Oh, hey, look. I forgot I ordered these too. I got bass picks. But here's the CD that I want. Okay, so next up we have the soundtrack for the video game Ico. Now, some of you might know that I am a huge fan of video game soundtracks on CD. I have a pretty decent collection that I've accumulated over the years. Just to name a few, I have the Majora's Mask soundtrack, I have a Pokemon Red and Blue soundtrack, a lot that I've forgotten about, it seems, now that I'm put on the spot. I have a whole other video showing off some of those soundtracks, so I'll leave a link to that in the description below. This is an interesting one because I've actually never played this game in full, but I have been aware of it ever since I was a kid. My neighbor had a copy of it, and I remember going over to his house and watching him play it and being kind of fascinated by it, but not exactly knowing what was going on. It wasn't until much later that I looked into it and learned about what Ico was and what the game was like, and becoming really fascinated by it. One thing that really stuck out with me was the music. Much like the game itself, it's very atmospheric and spacious and very, very pretty sounding. And so I listened to the soundtrack and ended up really enjoying it. But I also thought, well, it's a Japanese game and the soundtrack's probably going to be expensive because it's probably going to need to be imported from Japan, blah, 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 all that stuff. As it turns out, it's still in print and I was still able to get it for the same price as any old new CD you might get. So I seized that opportunity and I got it. So this is a very exciting soundtrack for me to own because it's a short one, much like the game, but it's a total banger. But more than anything, this is making me want to actually play the game in full, which it's gotta be available on something that I have, maybe on PlayStation 5. I'll have to look into that. So after I'm done listening to this, I'm gonna seek out how to get this game and play it because I'm still fascinated by it. It's still all very mysterious and wondrous for me, but I'll play it eventually. Okay, next up, we're gonna do this thick boy, which again, I don't think is a thick packaged CD. I think whoever shipped it to me was just extra careful. Oh boy. Okay, so we're gonna pull away one layer to reveal another layer. Boy, they were really, really cautious about this one. Oh my goodness. They used like a whole roll of tape to seal this thing. Okay, we're breaking through. Oh, I can see it. We're almost there. Surprised we got all the way to part 3 of these videos to find a package that was going to take all this time to open. Everything else has been very, very easy. There we go. Okay. Finally, we've hit it. This next CD, this is a band called Hole Dweller, and this is their album Flies the Coop. Hole Dweller is this amazing dungeon synth project that I just discovered randomly through some forum online and instantly loved it. They have several albums that they've released on their Bandcamp, but as far as I know, this is the only one that got a CD release. I've also lately just been enjoying dungeon synth and finding dungeon synth CDs because kind of similar to Vaporwave, it's one of those micro genres that there's a lot out there, and some of it is awesome and some of it is just not good. But this to me is some of the best dungeon synth I've ever heard, and I honestly think that there are going to be a lot of people online who will agree. I'm really hoping at some point down the line that the rest of Hole Dweller's discography will eventually be issued on CD because I would like to own all of them. All I know is this is a very exciting one for me to own and add to my small collection of dungeon synth CDs. Check this album out, check all their other albums out, you won't be disappointed. Next up, we'll go with this package here, which is also thick, but seems a little easier to open. This one is just stuffed with shreds of cardboard. So there's like a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. I think I'm grabbing the CD. I don't know what I'm grabbing. Grabbing something. There we go. Open it up. Oh, there it is. Oh, did you bend a little bit? She kind of bent. Oh, it's fine. It's just like a paper sleeve. This packaging is really crazy. Wow. Okay. All right, well, before we look at that any deeper, this next CD I have for you today, this is the Caretaker's very first album, Selected Memories from the Haunted Ballroom. The Caretaker is this really unique electronica experimental artist. What he typically does is takes these old vintage recordings from what sounds like the 20s, 30s, or even the 40s, and manipulates them in such a way where he creates loops and adds static, pops, strange noises to it to create a narrative. And the whole thing just sounds disturbing and creepy and unnerving, even though it's just a loop. He's best known for his album Everywhere at the End of Time, which is this monolith release that sort of encapsulate what's happening when someone is diagnosed with Alzheimer's and going through dementia. But unlike that release, this album doesn't have too much of a concept, but rather is just focused on the old creepy loops. But it's a fantastic album nonetheless. Everything this guy does is great, but I really do enjoy this one. And this one has been on my want list on Discogs for a very long time now, so I seized the opportunity the moment someone listed a copy. And going back to the packaging of this packaging is wild. I was kind of expecting like a digipack or a jewel case, but it's literally just held together with printed construction paper. Looks very DIY. I can't tell if this is a CDR or what it is. Still very cool nonetheless to own. I might actually have to get an outer sleeve for the CD here. We're gonna put that back in its little plastic bag and try not to bend the packaging any further because this one's a rarity. Next up, we will do this package here. There it is. Okay, so next up, I have an album by, I don't even know how to say the name properly. I just know this is a Keiji Haino side project. Is there anything in here that'll help me? Nope, not at all. It's all in Japanese, and the artwork is completely minimal, which is in keeping with a Keiji Haino release. Keiji Haino is one of my favorite experimental artists ever. He has a crazy amount of works he's put out, and all of which are completely mind-boggling. Some of his stuff includes atonal, droney guitar playing. Some of it is very noisy and abrasive. Some things he's just screaming. Some things he's playing drums. He does just all kinds of projects that involve playing with and manipulating sound. And a lot of his stuff is really hard to get because they were either only released in Japan or were released in very few quantities. So anytime I see something of his that I don't own, I typically try to get. This album is an interesting one because it doesn't feature any guitars or any vocals, but instead is more focused on being ambient and droney. Someone described it as sort of a dark ambient medieval approach, which instantly piqued my curiosity. And upon hearing it myself, I wouldn't necessarily agree with the medieval descriptor, but it is definitely on the dark ambient side of things, which I do really love. And another reason I'm happy to own this one is because, like a lot of Keiji's other albums, you can't listen to them through streaming services. You can't hear him on Spotify, you can't hear him on Apple Music. Typically, you just have to rely on people to upload his music onto YouTube. So this is a great addition to my growing Keiji Haino collection. I don't know how much of his stuff I have, nor do I even know if I'm going to be able to get all of his stuff. Who's to say? But slowly but surely, I'm adding more and more, and this one is a very, very good one. Next up, we have this guy here. Another simple package. We always love that. There it is. Cool. So next up, we have an album by a group called Group Ongaku. I guess we've reached the Japanese portion of this video because the last album, this album, and all the albums that I'm going to be talking about going forward are all Japanese artists. But this is one I'm really excited to own because it is just this one-off Japanese experimental project that only put out this album with 4 recordings on it in total, and they're awesome. If I remember correctly, Group Ongaku started as a project formed by students that was placing emphasis on improvised music, improvised dance, just improvisation in general. They did performances throughout the 60s and 70s before eventually disbanding the project, and the only recordings of their performances live on this album. To someone who wouldn't know better, they might hear the music on this and go, what am I listening to? It just sounds like chaotic noise, and well, that's exactly what it is. Again, their whole thing was centered around improvisation. So the first recording sounds like they literally set a microphone up in someone's house and everyone in the room was walking around making some kind of noise. They were hitting a blender, they were smacking the ground. At one point you can hear someone speak into the microphone way up close, and that goes on for several minutes. It's a very unique thing to hear, but it is something I find fascinating. I'm thrilled to own this in my collection. This is the kind of stuff I would put on to actually fall asleep to, because it's just random field recordings and I find it very comforting. Next up on the Japanese portion of the video, I have a twofer in these huge packages that I don't think need to be as big as they are, but that's fine. Get rid of that. I'm gonna move this one over here for now. Okay, there it is. Oh, it's much bigger than I expected it to be. Holy hell. Wow. Damn, she thick. Well, we'll talk about that in a sec. Let's open up the other one here. Nope, that's not it. That's it. There is a lot of layers of bubble wrap on this one. Good grief. Okay, I think we're almost there. Okay, there it is. This one is not nearly as thick, but the padding made it thick. There we go. All right. Cool. The next CDs I have for you today, I have 2 albums by the band L'Arc-en-Ciel. L'Arc-en-Ciel is an amazing, amazing J-pop, J-rock band. I first discovered them through the anime Fullmetal Alchemist, who used their song Ready Steady Go as one of their opening themes. In fact, I actually own the album that has Ready Steady Go on it and love it. It's a fantastic album. But after that album, I kind of forgot about them, and it wasn't until recently when I was re-listening to that album and thought, man, this band rules. Let's check out some of the other stuff they have. And boy, do they have a lot in their discography. So much so that I didn't know exactly where to start, and it was a little overwhelming, but eventually I stumbled across these 2 albums that are very different from one another, but very good nonetheless. So starting with this one, DUNE, this is actually the band's very first album. Unlike the album I already knew, this one is a very different sound for them. I guess when the band first formed, they were mostly doing kind of gothic post-punk sounding music similar to that of Joy Division and The Smiths and The Cure, which was very strange to hear considering I was so used to the band doing a more straightforward J-rock sound, but I still found it fascinating. And the more I listened to it, the more I realized, wow, I like this quite a bit, so I need to get this, and here it is. This version is actually a reissue, so it's remastered, and I believe it contains a couple extra bonus tracks, which you know I'm all for. And then this album is a much, much later release called Butterfly. Now the main album on here, Butterfly, is back to their straightforward J-rock that I'm already familiar with. But the reason why I bought this thick version is for the bonus disc that's included in it. L'Arc-en-Ciel has this secondary band where all the members switch instruments and they play punk music, and they go under the name Punkin' Seal. And that bonus disc is a compilation of all the Punkin' Seal studio tracks that they recorded and released throughout their career. I think that alter ego is phenomenal and just goes to show how talented all the musicians are. So admittedly, I don't fully care about the album Butterfly. I mostly wanted the Punkin' Seal disc, but I am excited to actually listen to it because it just means I have more content to consume. Very, very cool band, very interesting band, a band that has explored many, many different sounds. I'm excited to own these. These are great, great, great albums. All right, Internet, we are down to the final CD here. Get that box out of the way. And this one should be also very cool. It's more Japanese music, I can tell you that. Aw, yeah, here we go. Oh, that's got my address on there. Get rid of that. All wrapped up nicely. Oh, those look so cool. Here we are, Internet. The last albums I have for you today. I have 3 CDs by the band Coaltar of the Deepers. Coaltar is this insane band. I don't even want to just say shoegaze band because they are so much more than that. They take shoegaze and fuse it together with electronica, metalcore, nu metal, all sorts of just random genres that don't seem to work together at all, and somehow they pull it off. This album especially, No Thank You, I think is considered their best work. It's not nearly as metal-based as some of their earlier albums. It's sort of straying more into the shoegazy side of things, but there are some moments of heaviness that are there. And then these albums, Yukari, Telepath, and Newwave, are straying even further away from the nu metal and more into electronica and shoegaze territory, but again, still very, very good. I was having a hard time deciding which album of theirs that I wanted to own, but ultimately I decided on getting all 3 of these because I'd say they are the best examples of their sound. I almost got their compilation, the Breaststroke 1 and the Breaststroke 2, but I didn't feel comfortable owning a compilation when I knew at some point I would get the full albums, so I just cut out the middleman and got full albums instead. At some point, I would like to own all of their albums. I know that's going to take some time because there are some that are much harder to get than these ones. As of right now, I am happy with owning these 3. They are all excellent releases, and if you haven't checked them out, you definitely should, especially if you're a fan of Japanese shoegaze. It's also easy to hear because it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music, it's on YouTube, so you can hear it. There's many resources for you to listen to these albums. It's not like Keiji Haino and Group Ongaku where you have to find them on YouTube or somewhere else. These ones you can hear, and you should do that. They are very, very good. Alrighty then, Internet, that does it for me. We finally reached the end. We've opened up all the packages, and now I get to listen to them and inspect them carefully, which will be fun, and I will do off camera because that's probably going to be boring for you. Thank you all so very much for sticking around and watching. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It'll show me the support. I'll love your face for it. And again, you can follow me on my Instagram at WILT Music. I post new albums on there and talk about them, and it gives you a bit of an insight of what else is in my collection. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next video, whenever that might be. See you then.